Well, hi, I'm Rick Reiff, and welcome to Inside OC. Outrage at the jail, a pile of sheriff resumes, an ailing economy, and, oh yes, Hillary versus Obama. To discuss all of these topics and more on this special edition of Consider This, I'm joined by Will Swaim, publisher of the District Weekly in Long Beach, Steve Young, Democratic congressional candidate, and Republican pollster Adam Probolsky. Welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Rick.
So, Will, we've got a bunch of candidates for sheriff in Orange County, the most powerful position, and because of all the events that have gone on, we've now got all of these candidates. A lot of jobs for the next sheriff.
Well, the first job, of course, is to clean everything up going back probably decades. But the guy I think all the real smart money's on is Paul Walters, the Santa Ana Police Department's chief.
Well, we're going to get to them in a second. We're going to handicap. We're going to handicap that. But what are the things that are going on? We've got the jail scandals. We've got this culture of secrecy.
Well, I would say one of the biggest problems, of course, is just sort of transparency in the system. For years, the Sheriff's Department has been the most powerful department in the county. It's been run by the most powerful politician. And though elected, that guy has been almost unimpeachable until Corona came along. It's really about the public's right to know what's going on in their own department. And I think
but he was even unimpeachable when all this was coming down. I think if you took a poll today, people would still re-elect him.
Probably,
I mean, it is a real problem in this county in terms of what do we do about politics versus principles.
Well, now we have this interesting situation. As you say, the most powerful, I think maybe we would all agree on this panel, the sheriff of Orange County is the single most powerful local elected official. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Sure.
Yeah. So we're all agreed on that. And yet, this guy's not going to be running for the office now. It's a situation where the supervisors are going to be appointing somebody. We're getting all these resumes. Adam, is this any way to select a sheriff?
Well, I think it's a whole lot better if the voters do, but given the situation, the supervisors get their shot at it, and they've got, there's 5 of them that get to figure it out. So the scenario works.
I just like it. Why not put the names on the ballot for June? We have an election coming up, and let the people pick.
Well, not all those people would actually run if
they won't run, then why should they be sheriff? Why not stand in front of the people?
I love your support of democracy, and yet you have just pointed out that these people would elect either a corpse or Corona again. So maybe this is a blessing, and God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves.
Well, look who you got picking them, though. I mean, you've got 5 of the same picking a sheriff. I mean, I trust the people as much as I do.
What do you mean 5 of the same?
You have a diverse board of supervisors, independently elected supervisors.
Diverse. They're all Republican. They all march to the same tune. You got Norby, who's taking money out of his campaign fund and saying, oh, it's no big deal. You got Morlock, who gives himself a pension raise and then complains about the deputies. You got Janet Nguyen, who doesn't know what she's doing. I really don't trust them. I'd prefer the people to pick our next sheriff.
Steve, you're going to have a chance to pick one here in just a moment, okay? We've got 48 resumes have come in from all over the place. The next month, the supervisors will be going over it. There will be public comments. There will be interviews. And then sometime after, presumably the June 3 primary, they'll make a choice. Now, here are probably the leading candidates. We'll go down. I'm going to handicap. This guy's the leading candidate. He's probably 3-1 against the field. He's still probably not, odds-on to get it, but I would say he's probably got the best single chance. Jack Anderson. Who's Jack Anderson?
Well, Jack Anderson actually came in through the department, and based on what he's done so far, which is to open up the department already to outside scrutiny. He's got an indictment already against some of his own employees. He's got internal investigations going on that look like they're really free and fair. But he did come up through the Corona system. And though he is saying all the right things about Corona now, one has to wonder, where he was before.
I think it's important to point out that he was there before Corona got there for a decade, and he's there after Corona. Here's a guy he was the line deputy who was charged with testing and then implementing cameras in patrol cars. So from day one in his involvement in the department, he's been the guy bringing transparency to the department.
He's also an active Republican.
He is.
And Steve, you must like that, right? That's
I happen to look at the sheriff's office as nonpartisan. I don't think you should even...
You mean it ought to be, right?
It ought to be. I don't think there should be endorsements. I think that if you're running for sheriff, you should re-register decline to states so that it is not a political issue. I like to follow up on what Will's saying. I think that somebody like Anderson, who is bringing transparency, is good. I like Bill Hunt just because he was saying this back before the election, talking about Corona and all the corruption that he saw. And frankly, he took a bullet for doing it. He was put on administrative leave and canned by Corona after the election.
So Bill Hunt's kind of the insider who's the outsider because he was really on the outs with Corona, and he has the union support.
Well, and you know, union is just one constituency. I frankly, just like I don't think we should have partisanship in the sheriff's office, I don't think that a union who is basically under the jurisdiction of somebody should really be somebody you look to for, you know, the endorsement is to the best person. I like the deputies. I work with them every day. I think they're tremendous. But I think the people need to be picking the sheriff because it's broader than just the deputies. You have the sheriff who's supposed to be responding to the people, who's supposed to be dealing with crime, who's to be above reproach, and is to be an administrator.
And given the fact that the deputies have endorsed them, then do you see that as a plus or a minus for Hunt getting it?
I see it as a neutral.
You see it as a neutral?
Well, you mean in the real world of politics, it can't be a neutral. In the real world of politics, it's actually an asset. But you don't think it should count for something?
I think it should be a neutral. I think it's good that you don't have the sheriff screaming and yelling about it, the deputies. But I really think that this is something where, like we're talking because of Frank Micadiet with the Register about the judges, I think we should be vetting all of these sheriff's candidates so the people know who they're voting for. And right now, you know, they know as much as the supervisors do.
Okay, well, Adam, we got to get through these guys. Paul Walters, who's Paul Walters?
Police chief, Santa Ana, been around for a long time, run and lost for sheriff before.
I think he's a local guy. He's well known, and he's done a lot of work in the jails in Santa Ana, which seem to get fairly high marks. And right now, so I'm thinking that might work in Paul Walters' favor.
But the problem is, at a time when everybody else was turning against Corona, even people inside his own party, the people who had backed him, Walters endorsed him again to run. At a time when all the information was already out there, Paul Walters says, I still back this guy. That's bad judgment, man. I do not want that guy running the sheriff's department, number one.
Of course, so did the Central Committee of the Republican Party.
Absolutely agreed. And now,
endorsed Corona.
And now they back Walters. And this is what terrifies me.
And how about Ralph Martin, Ralph Martin? What kind of shot does he have?
I don't think a whole good shot at all. He's a commander in the Los Angeles Police Department.
Lives in Coto de Casa.
Does, but where he works is very different than the job is supposed to be. I mean, running down big crime scenarios in South L.A. is very different than Mission Viejo.
All right, now those are the kind of the local guys, the ones everybody knows. We've got a whole bunch of candidates nobody's ever heard of. We've got sheriffs from Onondaga County, New York, and Delaware County, PA. They both have about 500,000 people, so much smaller than Orange County. Undersheriff of Bronx, New York. Chicago PD, we got a captain and a sergeant that want the job, and it goes on and on. My favorite is Kim Bryan London of Saint-Didier au Mont-d'Or, France.
You
who
just
is
wanted
the former, I wanted to say that, I've been rehearsing it, and he is the former executive director of Interpol.
That's the man we need.
Now, isn't that, get smart, that's the guy we need, Will.
Well, think about it. He's an outsider. I mean, if you want an outsider, that's about as far out as you can go.
It's great to go out there and do a national or, quite frankly, international search, but at the end of the day, there needs to be someone here in Orange County who knows Orange County, grew up, quite frankly, in the organization or a nearby organization, and has the ability to step in and take action.
Why do you think so? I mean, the law is the law,
do see
right?
so.
Why do you think that?
No, I'll tell you why. Right now, Jack Anderson is very successful at what he is doing as acting sheriff because he has the ability to take someone out of a jail and says, you know what, bad things happened while you were on watch. I'm going to move you out of there or fire you.
So finally, gentlemen, just very quickly, should we go with one of these guys from outside or go with one of the insiders?
I like Anderson.
I like Hunt.
Jack Anderson.
3 for Anderson. How interesting.
I
3
said-
out of 4. 3 out of 4.
You voted? I didn't hear that.
But I think I like the Interpol guy. The OC Insiders next, and then more with the Consider This panel. And now it's time for the OC Insider from the Orange County Business Journal. Remember SunCal? That's the big Irvine developer who shook up Anaheim and angered Disney by trying to put 1,500 homes in the city's resort district. SunCal wound up losing, but now the buzz is that SunCal has much bigger worries. It's defaulted on almost $200 million in loans and walked away from several projects because of the housing crash. And rumors are that even bigger projects are now on the sales block, including its Showcase Marblehead project in San Clemente. SunCal dismisses the speculation. Well, you can blame the slow economy, you can blame Chinese competition, the cost of doing business in California. Heck, you can blame NAFTA. Dynamic Cooking Systems, a maker of high-end barbecues and stoves, is feeling the heat. Dynamic is moving its factory from Huntington Beach to Reynosa, Mexico, just across the Texas border. Huntington Beach will lose over 300 jobs. That will leave the headquarters and about 100 workers. And speaking of the slow economy, image-conscious OC residents are still finding a way to work a luxury car into their budgets. Those giant Newport Beach car emporiums, Fletcher Jones Mercedes-Benz and Newport Lexus, both report that sales of new cars are down so far this year, but they say sales of used cars are up, whatever it takes to keep up with the Fletcher Joneses. And that's it for The Insider, the presidential race, and turmoil at a Vietnamese paper. Next on Consider This. And once again, I'm joined by Will Swaim, Steve Young, and Adam Probolsky. Well, gentlemen, the Viet Weekly, yet another controversy in Garden Grove. In fact, it can get kind of confusing out on Main Street in Garden Grove these days, what with all the protesters. Reporter David Nazar went to hear what all sides have to say.
This is what it's like on Garden Grove's Main Street on any Saturday. For the past 9 months, the Vietnamese protesters have been out here voicing their opposition to the Viet Weekly newspaper, which they say prints pro-communist, pro-North Vietnam articles. Now, for the past 2 weeks, maddened Main Street merchants have been starting their own Saturday protest, trying to get the Vietnamese protesters to stop.
It's extremely difficult. We down here on Main Street, most of us have been here for years, and we've never encountered anything like this.
Weimer says the Main Street merchants cannot endure the Vietnamese protests anymore.
Unfortunately, now on Saturdays, myself and many of the other businesses are now faced with not being able to bring clients down. It's extraordinarily difficult to conduct any kind of business. We can't even talk on the telephone with the loud level of noise and disruption that's been going on here on the street.
The paper's protesters say they're out here exercising their right to free speech.
I agree, that's the hurt for the business. However, I don't think we do anything wrong.
The Vietnamese community says it wants to rally against Viet Weekly's message. They say in a newspaper article printed earlier this year, a North Vietnamese author praises Ho Chi Minh as a savior of the Vietnamese people, and the September 11th terrorist attacks were justified.
That's mischaracterization of how we cover our news.
That's Le Vu, the publisher of Viet Weekly, himself a Vietnamese refugee who escaped that country as a teen and founded the newspaper in 2003. Vu says he won't change the tone of the paper, which he says engages in healthy dialogue.
Because we are for free speech and dialogue and conversation, and in our community, most of other media channels, they are afraid of engaging in such conversation.
Vu says the Viet Weekly prints many articles with many differing points of view.
In the article where they say glorify Ho Chi Minh and terrorists and all that, that's written by the author in Vietnam, and it reflects his opinion more than our opinion.
Nevertheless, the protesters say it's wrong no matter who's writing it.
The Vietnamese protesters say the only way they'll stop protesting out here is if the paper prints an apology. The publisher says no way. However, he does say he's offering space to the protesters if they want to express their views.
One of the other principles we committed, more important than our own opinions, is we open our forum for all voices, including the one who criticize us.
I just write one article, say, I'm sorry for that, that article. If they hurt for somebody or some group, we apologize.
That shows the magnitude of the problem in our community.
When do you think these protests will stop?
That's the question I can't answer.
And that answer certainly doesn't help the Main Street merchants any.
We've been out for 2 weeks now, and we would otherwise not choose to do something like this in any way, shape, or form, but we've pretty much run out of options.
In Garden Grove, David Nazar.
And since that aired, the protests continue. It's going on nearly for a month now, Steve. Your thoughts?
Well, we as Anglos here in America, where we've never had a war, are in a difficult situation trying to understand what these people are feeling. I can tell you the real issue here is not just the stories that have been printed, but colors that have been put in ads and other things like that, that the protesters are complaining are insensitive to their loss. They lost everything in Vietnam to a government that we, frankly, were against during the 60s and 70s, and they are very slow to forgive. Apparently, just like we're slow to forgive, for example, Fidel Castro in Cuba. It's no different in terms of our approach there as these people's approach is to Vietnam right now.
He's protesting against a newspaper, though, in the community that's giving all sides. Is it maybe misplaced?
It's a voice is what it is, and they are concerned about the voice, and they dislike it. They are so sensitive to this that they dislike it in their realm.
So I think that's sort of the key here. America, it used to be the conservatives used to attack liberals all the time as being sort of the party of victimization and of all victims. This has become a sort of national characteristic, I would argue, of all Americans. We have this sense that if we are offended, somebody's going to pay. They have to make me feel good, and the only way to do that is for them to apologize. Screw the apology. I mean, what is the problem really in America where we have this marketplace of ideas and we can handle everybody's opinion because we're all grown up, right? I mean, welcome to America. This is what happens. And also, to them, I would say, it's also a free country and you can keep protesting and have a great time.
But let me say something. Again, it's a cultural thing. I can tell you that in the Asian culture, the Asian community, the apology is much more important than we as Anglos understand. It makes all the difference in the world in a dispute between parties as to whether or not there is an apology with an Asian.
This is no longer a merely Asian characteristic. This is a characteristic of American culture now, that we all need to feel good, and we need to feel good all the time.
I'm talking in this setting that we're talking about right now.
I'm talking about America, which is transcends that, and that this is a problem in America. And I think that if the guy does apologize, it's a loss for free speech. He does not need to apologize for offering diverse opinion, and they can go out and they can protest. That's also covered by the Constitution.
I happen to agree with you.
Will, you are no longer a leftist in any way. You know, you have
he's a newspaper publisher.
He's a libertarian.
I happen to believe in the First Amendment.
There you go.
But
Will, you just astonish me more and more. You're getting closer and closer to me all the time.
I think it's a matter of, they can print whatever they want, and that's right, and that is what the First Amendment is. But people are going to be reactive, and we are becoming more reactive. I think that's your point.
Yeah. Well, as we speak about this kind of uproar and speech and all that, let's talk about the presidential race a little bit. And Adam, Reverend Wright, people still are upset about what he said, and Obama hasn't done enough. Is Reverend Wright going to go away as an issue?
No. In fact, he's just doing an interview coming up on PBS.
As we speak.
That's great. Keep him out there in the media. I think that's a good thing. We need more of that.
You say with a smile of someone who's backing McCain.
Sure, but more importantly than that, it's I think symptomatic of Obama's ability to continuously screw with his chances of success to put things out there like this comment that he said that the middle America clings to their guns and their God. It's a dangerous thing to let this guy open his mouth.
Well, frankly, middle America does cling to their guns and their gods. I just believe that he used the wrong word when he described bitterness as the motivation that took him there.
No, I'm pretty bitter. I'm really bitter.
Well, but you don't have a gun or a God.
Yet.
But no, the point being is...
What are you talking about? No,
because you've told me. The issue here isn't, that America clings to guns and gods, because we do. I do. I cling to my gun. I cling to my God.
He's carrying it right now, man.
But it's not bitterness that put me there.
Right,
and I think that's the problem with the comment.
And he characterized it as if those are the people that don't know any better.
Adam,
we need to decide for them.
You don't seriously mean to suggest that when there's an economic downturn and the country is sort of spiraling and you've got people who are really sort of feeling like they're on the edge, that maybe they're going to be bitter and perhaps even more reliant on their faith, and maybe even feeling like they want to sort of pick up their guns once in a while. You don't think so?
I don't think there's anything wrong with having passion for all those things, and America does.
Right.
But when you characterize it as being a bad thing, suggesting... But he did. He was talking to intellectual and wealthy San Franciscan Democrats who are afraid of middle America.
And
that he was trying to capitalize
Have you done some sort of examination of this?
Adam is a pollster.
The word that he should have used was either fearful or unstable, because that's what really led people...
Unstable would have been great.
No, I mean instability. The situation is you look for stability when you have fear, or instability. And guns and God are very stable for people. Those are things to hold to. God is the most stable.
All right, but
and so that's where they go.
I think there's a distinction, though, to be made between things that Obama himself may say or misstate, and even that Michelle Obama might say that get people mad, and that guy's reverend. Obama didn't say these things. He's distanced himself, and he's condemned those remarks, but he won't repudiate the man himself, and it's like if they don't get that extra ounce of blood. And,
he did.
But
in the debates.
Well,
I think that
Hillary Clinton challenged him, and he said, yes, I disavow Reverend Reiff.
So the point is, and Adam, what else do you want him, let's say, what else do you want Obama to do? What else is he supposed to do?
Just keep talking. Just keep putting himself out there, because he
Adam,
will mess up.
Are you going to hold
again.
McCain to the same standard that anybody McCain has ever associated with, who's ever said anything you don't like?
I've not said anything negative about Reverend Reiff.
I understand.
I think it's just a helpful tool in helping Republicans get elected.
Let me be helpful and point out. Let me point out that one of McCain's supporters recently called Obama boy. Now, I don't know what that means to you, but where I come from, that's an offensive, racist term. McCain
just
hasn't
meant
yet.
that Obama's much younger than
Should he
John
apologize for that?
McCain should apologize and disavow, and he has not
You just
yet.
got done saying you don't have to apologize for your
No,
free
I'm just
speech.
playing the Probolsky card here and saying I want McCain to explain his relationship to this man who used a racial epithet.
The guy
to
wrote him
describe
a $1,000 check, and all of a sudden he's got to be
No,
his
it wasn't a
best
$1,000 check. He is on his backers. He is one of his organizers. He's a volunteer for his campaign. He's a governor of a state. So this is not just some lunkhead out of Arkansas, Bill Clinton or something like that. This is a guy, he's not bitter enough. I'm bitter. And Adam, you're making me more bitter by the moment.
Okay, Adam, I want to get your take on Hillary. Is she going to come back all the way?
I sure hope so, because as Republicans, we understand the Clintons much better. We know how to, fight them and hopefully beat them at some point, but God forbid she were to get elected, we can keep the Hillary and the Clintons in a box. We know what their MO is. So I'm rooting for Hillary at this point.
And thus, all the Texas Republicans at Rush Limbaugh's insistence turned out and voted for Hillary in the primary.
Yeah.
I think the Democrats should take note of what a powerful Republican in Orange County like Adam is saying about who they want as an adversary in November.
Finally, I do want to touch on the economy briefly. Will,
yes,
how bad is it in Orange County?
It's bad. I mean, I said a few months ago, it's not going to get better in 2008, and we're already hearing from the Federal Reserve this is a modest sort of bump, it's going to be okay, and the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, but the underlying economics are really bad. The Americans are overextended in their personal funds. In Orange County, the housing market is stalling.
1929.
You just said
that,
1929, and I agree it's bad. I think we're in a serious recession, but Adam, is it being overplayed a little bit now? Like now people are being limited on how much rice they can buy. Like you're going to run out you can only buy 8 bags of rice. I mean, give me a break. Is there a little panic that sets in?
I think there's a little panic, but it is going to get worse. And from a partisan perspective, I've been on Republicans to be more compassionate about this problem. We don't have to have a government bailout. We don't need to put government funds into making sure people's mortgages are paid. But we do need to be compassionate about it, because there are millions of people in America today that are hurting, and there's tens of thousands of people in Southern California that are about to lose their homes.
What does that
so we need to be more compassioned.
What does that compassion look like?
It looks like you, Steve, and we are out of time. Compassion looks like you. We're out of time.
You're losing your
Gentlemen, thank
very
you.
nice of you.
You can watch this show and past shows by going to koce.org and clicking on Inside OC. My guests have been Will Swaim, Steve Young, and Adam Probolsky. We're going to keep talking. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again Inside OC.
This reason.
Inside OC is brought to you by the following.
Here at the University of California, Irvine, our dermatologists have got the latest tools and techniques to to make your skin look its best.
Lennar.com. Today's new homes. Everything you want. Everything you need. That's the logic of Lennar. Lennar.com.
Where the land ends, a new lifestyle begins. A unique oceanfront resort. The Strand at Headlands offers custom home sites on the water's edge. The Strand at Headlands, Southern California's last beachfront community.
Support comes from City National Bank, providing complete financial solutions to entrepreneurs, their businesses, and their families on the way up in Orange County for more than 30 years. City National Bank believes in the power of the entrepreneur. On the web at cnb.com.
The City of Anaheim. Founded in 1857, Anaheim is Orange County's original city and California's 10th largest city. Information on living, working, or visiting Anaheim is available at www.anaheim.net.